Hey everyone, welcome. I'm Steven from the Developer Relations team, and I support the AR community building on Snap's platform. So I have a lot of conversations with many of you. I see a lot of familiar faces. And today we're here to talk about scaling AR, which is essential to your success, that we think. Because I think as Bobby mentioned this morning, that this field is sort of nascent, and with that comes with a lot of opportunities to innovate, create, and so those are wonderful experiences, but also on the flip side of it, there are some challenges, right? Equal challenges to be able to navigate that uncertainty, to be able to adjust in such a dynamic environment. And so we think the solution here is really making sure that we are building a scalable solution, having that at its foundation. And so I have, in preparing for this topic, I've grabbed some of our smartest and busiest colleagues to share their insights and knowledge in this field. And my hope by the end of this discussion is you feel confident that Snap's platform is built for you to succeed and scale in AR, because I know there's multiple options out there for you to pick and choose from. So without further ado, let's introduce our panel. We'll start with the person on the left. Please tell us your name and what you do here at Snap.
Hi guys, nice to see you all again. It's a little bit nice to be a bit of a switch, sitting down for a little bit. My name is Tarek. I've been working on Spectacles for the past 4 years, and I work mostly focused on the experiences we build, our operating system and platform, and really excited to talk a little bit more about how we do that.
Hi everyone, nice to see a lot of familiar faces here. I'm Tyreek. I'm a product manager in Lens Creator Success, and I've worked on everything from Lens Creator growth to incentive programs to Snapchat tooling to developer tooling in Lens Studio. So really excited to chat more today about scaling your AR.
Hi everyone, I'm Susan. I'm a product manager. I think I've interacted with most of you guys in the camera kit context. So I'm really excited to talk about that here. I support developer platform here at Snap.
Sweet. So we got an A-list panelist here, A tier. PMs for camera kit for mobile and web, PM for Snapchat, and PM for Spectacles. So this is where all of these different distribution for your AR experiences can go towards. So exciting panel. So let's get started with the first question. I'll start with you, Tarek, since Spectacles is the hottest thing on the block right now. So first, congrats on your recent latest launch of Spectacles to you and your team.
Yep.
Huge. So Spectacles is an exciting new way to experience AR in a more immersive and wearable format. So I think a lot of people have the question of, who do you see using these latest Spectacles, and how might developers benefit from creating AR experiences for this type of wearable technology?
That's an excellent question. I think this is probably the question that comes up more often than anything else is, who's this product for? And us as a team on the Spectacles side, have obsessed about this question quite a bit. For those of you who now have it and have tried it, you can tell we sweated the details in terms of how usable it is, how easy it is to get in and out of lenses. That was endless iterations to get us to that feeling of being able to get in and out of there, as well as the lenses that we've built. We built a ton of lenses to explore the different use cases and the things. So in so many ways, this is what I would consider a product that is meant to be kind of easily usable. Now the question is when it comes to the target user, one thing over the past year or so, if you kind of look at the landscape, I think we all kind of realize that even if you build the most perfectly engineered product, what you can't force is user adoption. So you have to be very mindful of who are the people that are ready to receive what you're trying to give them. For those of you who also have been watching in the last 2 years, this whole technological adoption kind of happens ever so slowly and then all at once. And no force in the world can ever force that. So what we wanted to do is just kind of be mindful of those types of users that are ready to receive it. I happen to be looking at a lot of them in this room. People who have been thinking about this medium, who've been playing for this medium, who've been wanting to integrate this stuff into their daily life. So in my mind, that would be the target audience that we have in mind for Spectacles. And you can benefit by, I think the easiest job to do in building a product is building a product for yourself. So kind of look at your daily flows, and we'll talk about it at length, and we talked about it a couple of times, sort of those opportunities where you can inject AR experiences into your daily life. So,
yeah, I love that. I think just being really mindful and very patient in our approach to make sure that we identify and work together with the community in identifying, what this looks like and making sort of these incremental improvements based on the needs of the community. And back to like what Evan and Bobby were saying is like that we rely on the community, we rely on your feedback to work together truly to make this an evolving platform. So that's great. Tyreek, let's go over to you. Let's talk about Snapchat. So Snapchat has been a major platform for AR experiences with users engaging with lenses daily. I forget the number, but I remember yesterday's keynote from Bobby. He shared like an astronomical number in terms of like lens users engagement. It was wild, and so very successful. So my question here is, what do you think has made AR on Snapchat grow so successfully? And then a quick follow-up is, how can developers tap into those same strategies to expand their reach?
Yeah, thank you, Stephen. Great question. So first and foremost, I want to say thank you to all of you, because without you, AR on Snap would not be as successful. But to dive into the question a little more, so we all know that Snapchat is built on the principle of making communication simple, fun, and easy with your friends. And indeed, we really encourage our AR developers to lean into that same kind of motif, especially when they're building for Snap. And so when we think about that, our internal teams are always looking at and testing different types of lens formats with the community to see, which ones really resonate with Snapchatters, which ones really inspire easy, fun communication. And then, once we test different formats and we see that they drive outsized impact, we immediately want to give them to you all, right? Because it's with you that we're able to scale this beyond what our internal teams can do. And so one example I can think about is, this year we've been really trying to speed up the speed it takes us to test an internal format, vet it, and then get it to you all as quickly as possible. But a couple of formats I can think about are earlier this year, we learned that, wow, Snapchatters really engage with randomizers a lot. This is a way for them to just start a conversation with their friends. No need to take a photo. You can just say hi to someone and send a randomizer or a this or that lens. Do you like carrots or do you prefer a burger? Something like that, something that makes communication direct and just really is a conversation starter. And so we tested that format, those two formats internally earlier this year. We saw they worked and we immediately got them to the community, and almost instantly, a lot of our creators who were using those formats immediately saw outsized engagement. And so again, as when I think about AR creators just being successful specifically on Snapchat, always think about how the experience you're building can inspire a Snapchatter to want to send something to their friend, to post to their story, to really start a conversation with people and just keep the conversation fun.
Yeah, I love that. I think, I'm curious from your experience from the randomizer, do you have like one that you've seen that's kind of your favorite? I have one to share, but curious if you have one to.
Yeah, there are a lot of ones that come to mind, but I think there's one that was going around earlier this year, like, which movie star are you? And I don't know, I can't remember what it made me. It might have made me Jake Gyllenhaal or something, and I was like, I am just never thought about being Jake Gyllenhaal, but things like that are just fun because it instantly makes me want to post to my story and start that flywheel with my other friends on Snapchat.
Yeah, I think that just allowing you to start that conversation, especially with randomizers, really speak to that value. Here's one I'll share, and I actually want to ask you guys this question as like a randomizer applied to you. I didn't realize this was a hot take because I took this randomizer lens, I sent it to my friends, my phone blew up, and it was very split. And so the randomizer sort of is like asking a question of, I guess it's not a randomizer, but sort of like a trivia question of A or B.
Right.
In-N-Out fries, we're here in California. Do you love In-N-Out fries, yay or nay? Because I did not realize how divided this is, so I'm curious. I'll start with you, and then I'll go to Susan. And I know I'm going off script a little bit, but I'm just curious here.
No strong opinions here, but
Okay, so we got a neutral. Nice.
between, yeah.
Okay.
I have never thought about it, but I would say they're not my most favorite, but they're good. They're good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Animal style fries, yes.
Okay, sweet. So we have a good panelist here because I think my last group that I've evaluated, they were just saying no, it tastes like cardboard, don't even eat it, don't touch it. So, but anyways, that's just like one of those examples where it's such a great lens. It just sparked a lot of conversations and just a lot of fun with my friends. So thank you for that. And Susan, I do want to get to you real quick, but I'm going to just give Tarek a question really quick while we're on spectacles. Tarek, with this latest launch of Spectacles, I think we'll see more and more developers have the ability to build AR experiences for both Snapchat and wearables. So how does the process work for developers who want to publish lenses to Spectacles? And another way to ask this as well is like, what should developers consider when deciding whether to build a lens for Spectacles or Snapchat, or is there a scenario that could be both, or you build once deploy to both platforms?
That's a great question. I think this comes up quite often, as you can imagine, right? Like we have Lens Studio, one of the most approachable developer platforms for building lenses, and that goes to billions of people worldwide. Millions of people worldwide. And it's a very powerful distribution mechanism. So obviously we care a lot about that. But at the same time, we're starting to think about sort of like how does it fit with Spectacles. And I think the interesting fact that I assume most of you know is that like basically the engine that powers Snapchat AR or AR in Snapchat or Camera Kit or Spectacles is kind of like the same engine. One of the most interesting things about that is what it allows you to do is use the same patterns in Lens Studio, whether you're doing it for Camera Kit or you're doing it for Spectacles or you're doing it for mobile. Now, there's also differences. Obviously, Spectacles, as you guys have seen now, they use your hands, right? They're they're kind of facing the world versus like your face. So the paradigm of how to develop for them is a little bit different. You've seen with YouHow, for example, the Spectacles Interaction Kit, and obviously that basically a UI kit that allows you to start actually making use of that. So that's where the differences start happening. Now we try to be very mindful to keep in mind sort of like when do we deviate and for what reason. One interesting aspect that I'm also not sure everybody knows as well is that the new Spectacles app also makes use of Camera Kit to actually bring in some of the features that you saw, like Spectator. I think I was kind of watching on Twitter a little bit some of the feedback, people asking, other bigger companies, like why can't I also see my experience from on another device? And the reason being is because it is the same shared engine. The reason being is because they work so well together that we're able to do things like, for example, Spectator, but it doesn't stop there. We've also seen DB Creations, Tiny Motors, take over the whole screen of the Spectacles app and actually be turned into a mobile controller. These are the type of things that we're always thinking about. Is like how do you complement existing things that exist in your everyday life, and how do they work with Spectacles? Not necessarily replace them. It doesn't mean like obviously Spectacles are standalone, but they don't live alone. So that's kind of like a difference. You can be independent but still have friends. Is one way to think about it. So I think like that's another example of how we think about like the role of the phone, the role of Camera Kit, and I think like especially as we actually look into the future with different partners that want to integrate Spectacles, for example, into their existing mobile experiences, like the Peridot team, for example. That game exists on mobile, right? So we have a lot of ideas and plans about how do we actually expand that and leverage some of these components that are already available within Snapchat.
Yeah, and I think I could speak for our community where customization and the ability to be able to build with unlimited opportunities here to create for Spectacles, leverage Camera Kit to talk to each other. Like this is something that I think is really valuable to the community. So that's great. And I guess this is a great transition to you, Susan. For some of the folks that may not know, Camera Kit is an SDK that lets developers bring Snap AR technology to your own mobile app and website. So it offers more ways to share AR content beyond Snapchat. And so my question to you, Susan, is how does being able to distribute AR experiences across multiple platforms help scale AR?
Yeah, so thank you for the question. So as you said, Camera Kit allows you to build lenses that can live outside of Snapchat. So everyone knows kind of how AR works on Snapchat. It's really successful for this like selfie, social communication use case, and it has great product market fit there. But really, if we want consumers to feel more comfortable with AR outside of that use case, it does need to get out of Snapchat. And so we have this powerful tool, Lens Studio. Camera Kit effectively allows you to take those lenses and they can live outside of Snapchat in your mobile apps where consumers are coming to those apps with completely different expectations of what this app does and finding that AR can like meet their expectations in new ways. So it's taking AR and kind of like releasing it from the confines of social communication, selfie type experiences. And I think that, in the long term, also trying to find these experiences that are maybe like back camera facing and work really well on Spectacles, Obviously, everyone doesn't have spectacles today, but everyone has a mobile phone and everyone has the internet. So that's kind of how Camera Kit helps you to scale beyond Snapchat. And while we're kind of waiting for spectacles in that space too.
Yeah, I love that. Again, it's like, just growing along with our community, identifying and giving you guys the tools to be able to build the AR experience that you ideate, that you dream of, that you want to deploy to wherever your end users are, whether they're on Snapchat, to their mobile phone or website, to now wearables. So yeah, I love that opportunity. I will go to the next question. So back to you, Tyreek. I'm sure the audience is curious about how they can make their lenses successful on Snapchat, especially with all the updates you're rolling out to enhance AR content creation like we saw yesterday. So could you share some of your favorite new tools or key approaches developers can use to create more engaging AR content on Snapchat?
Yeah, thank you, Steven. So let's start with the key approaches part, and then we'll work backwards to like the new tools and everything we've launched, because I'm actually super excited about those. So
yeah.
To go back to what I said earlier, it really comes down to when you're building AR for Snapchat, you want to think about ways that communication can be inspiring to start a conversation or to have a Snapchatter post to their story. And specifically, when I think about that, I also think about, we as Snapchat, we are constantly vetting these new technologies, we're testing them, and you should really, when we release something, I want to give you guys the confidence that we vetted it. We know that if you use this technology in your lens, you're going to see some outsized engagement on posts, on shares, on views, and specifically, 5 months ago, this was like our first, API where we were really excited to get it out to people internally. We knew that when people use Bitmojis in their lenses or in their posts, they drive we see a lot more story posting and sharing. So we released our Bitmoji and Friends API 5 months ago in Lens Studio. And happy to say that 5 months later, lenses created with those tools have been viewed over 1.3 billion times. And that's all thanks to you guys. It's a huge number. And the beats keep rolling, the hits keep rolling. So yesterday, I'm even more excited to talk about a couple of the things that might have slid undercover as we were talking about specs, and that was the big highlight. We released 2 new APIs and capabilities yesterday, dynamic responses and leaderboards. So excited. Me and the team worked so hard on those to deliver them. And we released trending and the Lens Studio start screen. And so when you look at all the new sample projects and APIs we're launching, you can kind of use that as like a pulse on what you should be doing and using in your tech to drive outsized impact in your lenses. Leaderboards, for example, and dynamic responses, we were seeing that that's a way that people have been communicating on Snapchat and other platforms, and we wanted to get it to you all as quickly as possible. And so with dynamic responses, we launched it yesterday. You get 4 templates to get started with that, but obviously you can quickly start building more sophisticated use cases. Leaderboard actually launches tomorrow with a custom component and a template, as well as the doc supporting it. And we saw on Snapchat that a lot of people are using gaming. They love game lenses. It makes sense to add a leaderboard to it because with a game, you get playtime, you get all of that, but with the leaderboard, suddenly you get playtime plus that posting because you're competing with friends. You want to inspire some friendly competition. So all that being said, approaches to being successful in Snapchat, look at us and listen to us when we release new tech because it's vetted and it's ready to go for you all to drive outsized impact. And just always think about core communication and how you can build a lens that inspires a Snapchatter to send, save, or post.
Yeah, I love that. I kind of want to double click, going off a little bit of the script here, but just want to double click on the Bitmoji piece. The stat is impressive. Curious, do you have any insights on why you see this being so successful? Why this is working out so well with the community, these type of lenses, or maybe share some of the favorite Bitmoji lenses that you've seen so successful?
Yeah, with Bitmoji, we actually learned. So one piece, to let you guys in on a little secret, kind of one thing we uncovered from our internal research and voice of customer surveys is when Snapchat opens to the camera, which we love, but sometimes when someone opens to the camera, they're not always in camera ready mode. And so lenses, they're obviously filter lenses or whatever, but the reason why we saw such an increase in sending and posting with Bitmoji is because a lot of our Bitmoji lenses, it's not your face, it's your Bitmoji in a created scene. My favorite lens is, it's I can't remember who created the lens. It's one of our community developers where you're in a car with, or a bus with 6 of your other friends and you're dangling off the back of the bus and it's just driving. It's silly, but I see that, I'm posting it.
Yeah.
It didn't require me to get out of bed, get into the mirror, pose for a selfie. I was just able to send it to friends and post really quickly. So specifically with Bitmoji, that's why we've seen such an uptake, because it really doesn't take any effort for you to start communicating with your friends.
Yeah, I think there's this sort of like attachment to your avatar and just seeing it present with all of your best friends' avatar and just doing silly things like being in a bus, dancing, ordering Chipotle. It's just hilarious. It's great. Okay, let's go to I think the last question, which is for you, Susan. So one of the key challenges developers face when thinking about scaling AR, which is we're operating in a very dynamic environment, is just expanding their reach without cost and time increasing at the same rate. So I know there's a ton of tools out there. But not all solutions seem to sort of handle this balance well in trying to make sure that this is like a sustainable route as we continue to support developers towards success. So how does CameraKit help developers keep costs low, particularly in terms of AR development and pricing? I know this is a very, it's a very frequently asked question from our community.
Yeah.
So putting you on the spot.
Yeah, so there's ways that our platform enables this, and then there's ways that are specific to CameraKit. So I'll touch on a little bit of both, but again, we have the same engine powering everything. So you can use this one authoring tool in Studio to build experiences that go everywhere, and we put a lot of time into the education, onboarding, tutorials, and materials there. So that's kind of at a platform level what we do, but specifically with CameraKit, it's free. It's free to use. We don't currently have plans to charge for it. And the really nice thing about Snap is we don't make our money off of being a SaaS business today. Our revenue comes from Snapchat. And so for us, this is really a place. AR is a place where we invest, and it's really this future investment. And as a result, we don't have plans to charge for it today. That said, we hear a lot of really great feedback from our community. We understand kind of how pricing and monetization has changed with our competitors, and we're very sensitive to that. So, when we have these kind of brainstorm conversations about crossing that bridge at some point, our principles are very clear in that we really want to be developer friendly. We want to take feedback from the community. And just not make it feel like a platform where you're being taxed for being successful. And so those are kind of some of the values that we're taking into this. But yeah, I think, in the short term, it's free. It's actually still free. We get that question a lot.
Yeah, so basically anyone that wants to create, so correct me if I'm wrong, anyone that wants to create AR to Snapchat obviously uses Lens Studio, but if they wanted to create it for their own mobile app or deploy it to their website, that's also available.
Yeah, that's through the CameraKit SDK, and you can just go request access to that today. We get back to you pretty quickly, and you can go ahead and use it and deploy to public consumers.
Fantastic. All right. So I think we'll wrap it up here. So I hope this discussion gave you new strategies for succeeding on Snapchat while also exploring ways to expand your AR reach to mobile, web, and wearables. So look, we understand AR is always evolving and things shift fast, but we're confident that our platform is built to help you succeed and grow along your journey. So we care about you, we care about the community, and we're excited to continue building together and scaling the future of AR. So thank you all, and thank you, Tyreek, Susan, and Tarek for the team here.
Thanks,
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right.